If you're attending an in person business convention, event, summit, or networking event, we want to make sure you are at the top of your game, especially if you're new to this world or if you're jumping in as an introvert who maybe is not as good at making connections. I have been doing this for a long, long time as a speaker and sometimes as an attendee, and I've learned a lot of tips and tricks along the way to help you level up and make sure you're taking a lot of the stress and time out of getting ready and attending these events. So, let me break down some of my best tips for you. The first of which is doing your research in advance. You should not walk into this event completely blind. You want to make sure that you know who the speakers are. If you're attending an event, you should be paying attention to who is going to be speaking there. Now, this typically is a selling point for the tickets. You want to make sure that you know who's going to be talking, what they're going to be talking about, but really take a minute to do a little bit of a deep dive on these speakers. You want to know what their platform is like. You want to go find them on social media. You want to look into who they are, what they do, and bonus points interacting with them on their social media. You want to make your presence known, and leaving a simple comment on a couple of their photos or their TikToks is really going to go a long way, and they might even recognize you once you walk into the space. You can potentially even have conversations with them outside of their specific speaking engagement. A lot of times I will reach out to speakers, other speakers that I'm working with, or speakers at the events that I'm attending, and I will offer to help them film it or help take photos or do something to make their life a little bit easier. This makes me known to that person. So they're actively looking for me or at least aware of who I am when I walk into that space. Now, this obviously isn't going to work with the biggest names in the industry. You're not going to get Gary Vee's attention if you say, "Hey, I'm coming to your event. Can I take photos for you?" He's got that. But when it comes to smaller speakers or smaller events, you will have a higher likelihood of being able to engage with these people. And at the very least, you can get in front of them, even those big name speakers, and be on their social media, have those conversations with them so that they can identify you or at least recognize your name if you get to ask a question during the Q&A or if you get to go speak to them after their engagement. You are going to then be a little more recognizable. You also want to know the people who's going to be there. You should be in Facebook groups talking to people in advance. You should be making these networking connections. You should be having conversations. You should be setting things up in advance. Now, hit the subscribe and notification bell because I actually have a full episode on how we're going to be doing this coming up that you don't want to miss. But you want to make sure you understand who else is attending. This is a great way to find friends before the event. Nobody likes walking in and being the wallflower and not knowing anybody. We've all been there at these events and conventions where we didn't know anybody and we kind of stood off to the side. We don't want to do that this time. So we're going to get to know people in advance. Maybe that means conversations before we get to the event. Maybe it just means recognizing names and being able to converse with them on an intelligent level when you meet them because you saw their posts or you saw what they do so that you can have a conversation if you just walk up to them or you bump into them at this event. So know who else is going to be attending to the best of your abilities. And again, I've got a full episode on that coming up for you. You also want to be creating collaborations and doing your networking in advance so that it's easier in person. You want to make sure you are setting up opportunities for you to meet people and for people to meet you and for other people to meet other people. When you become the facilitator of conversation and community, that works really well in your favor. And again, we're going to have episodes on this coming up. So subscribe, hit the notification bell. You don't want to miss out on these because we're doing this entire mini series on how you can be navigating these in-person conventions to level up, especially if you're paying good money for those tickets. Now, the next thing I want you to make sure that you're doing is being aware of your venue. You really need to know where you are going to be. Know the space. Know the space so that you can navigate it easier, so that you're not getting lost, so that you can get to your correct rooms on time if it is a multiple location convention. But also, you want to know where things like the food and bathrooms are going to be, where there's going to be spaces for you to like sit down and take a break. You can go outside, if you can come inside. And then you want to know potentially good places for content creation. Where in the hotel or the convention center, go on their website, where do you see in photos that there is a good potential place to create content by yourself or with others? You don't necessarily have to go to those locations, but knowing where they are makes it a lot easier, especially if you're an introvert, especially if you need to take a little time to yourself, especially if you need to walk away from crowds, and especially if you are actively trying to create content. You want to know the venue so that you can navigate it really smartly and see things as you are getting there. But in addition to that, you also want to make sure you're arriving early. By arriving early rather than right on time or late, you are then able to kind of scout the locations. You kind of get to, pick your seats early. You get to see what works well and what doesn't. You get to kind of see the different angles. And because they don't necessarily have maps of these convention areas online and all of those things, you can kind of look around and see what's good for content creation, what's good for, having a meeting with somebody later on, what's good for an area that I can sidestep and interview somebody in. You're going to look around, you're going to be able to learn a little bit more, and these will be the times that you're able to make better connections. There's less people, less fighting for attention, less conversations going on, so you have more of an opportunity to then interact with everybody and then, of course, document it for your later use. So as you are going to these different events, you want to make sure you are documenting everything. And I am talking everything. Walking in, walking out, the venue, the people you're talking to. And I've got a whole video on this coming up. So hit the subscribe and notification bell because I really want to break this one down for you. So the overview of this that I want you to know is that you need to be creating content out of everything that you're doing. You can use it later on, but you don't have to use it. But if you don't have it, you can't use it. So document everything, overshoot the photos, overshoot the video content, and then pare down later on. Also, as a bonus point to that, if you are creating a lot of content, you don't have a ton of space on your phone or your camera. At the end of each day, dump it all onto your computer on an external hard drive so that you're not eating up your computer space. Clear it off of your phone or your cameras and then go in the next day fresh. It's going to make it a lot easier for you. Now, I want you, as you're doing this, to think of what you need documented before you get to the location. So before you get in the plane, before you get in the car and you go to the venue for the event, I want you to think about what you want to document. Because yes, you should be documenting everything. You should be doing it in real time, documenting the things you're seeing, the people you're talking to, what you're doing, all of that. But there will be certain things that you can decide to get in advance to make sure you have what you need for the content you want to create for your day in the life vlogs or for your, roundup of everything that happened or for your documentation of different interviews and things like that. Create a list on your phone. If you go into your phone, just on the notes section, you can create a list of things that you want to get and then check them off. There's a little bubble on an iPhone that you can add to hit a check button. It saves you so much time and effort. And that way you're not stressed over making sure you're getting everything done. So if you're overwhelmed with the idea of documenting everything, get the main things you know you're going to need, check them off, and then before you leave, make sure everything is checked off. That way you can walk out of the event when it is over feeling like you got everything that you needed. That eliminates a lot of the stress and a lot of the overwhelm. So make sure you are documenting everything and then documenting what you're going to document so that you don't have to worry about it or be fearful of missing things later on. And again, we've got that video coming up for you to make sure that that's going to work to your benefit. Now, I also want you to make sure that you are making a point of meeting a certain number of people or certain types of people. So you can say, I want to meet 10 new people during this convention. And that's a great goal. And then you're going to sit there and you're going to make the effort to meet those 10 people. Or you don't want to meet a certain number of people. Maybe you want to meet a certain type of people. Maybe you are looking for people to collaborate with on your content creation. So you're looking for people who are in your space that you can interview, that you can get on your talk show. Or maybe you're looking for people to hire out to. Let's say you're at a business convention and there's lots of different people who do lots of different things and you want to outsource some of what you're doing. Maybe your goal is now to make contacts for people who create UGC content and people who edit videos and people who are really good at writing newsletters, all of which you can eventually potentially hire. So make an idea of a list that you want to meet. It can be a certain number. It could be 10 fabulous people that you just want to meet. It can be 3 of the speakers and 5 attendees. It can be something like people that you want to eventually employ. It could be somebody you want to learn from, or it could be somebody that you want to get on your show. It doesn't matter what it is. Pick a type and pick a number. They should not go overboard. Don't say 85 people. That's silly. We want lower achievable numbers. We want to make that the goal and we want to make that the priority. So let's just say you want to meet 3 new people that can do some type of collaboration with you in the future. Make this your goal and make it your goal for early on in the convention. We don't want to put it till the end. We don't want to wait till the end of the day while people are getting tired and everyone's walking out the door. We don't want to stress over this. Make it your early point inside of what you're doing and then get that knocked out of the way quickly. Once you meet those 3 people or 2 people or 5 people, however many it is, and you've got that achieved on your list, now it's a free for all. Now, if you meet more people, amazing. And if you don't, that's okay. There's no stress on it. So you could always get more than your goal, but if you don't reach your goal, you are probably going to be pretty stressed and it's not going to lead to a good experience for that convention for you. So start small. Have a goal. And it depends on who you are as a person. Extrovert might want to get more people on that list and introverts might want less. That's okay. It's about what's going to work best for you. It's about the quality of this and it's about how many conversations you want to have. So again, we're not doing 85 different people because that is just too much. We're never going to have time for extra things and other things to come up. So we want to give ourselves a little bit of leeway in this to make sure that we're actually achieving what we're trying to do, but giving the space for opportunity as well. But make sure you make an effort to connect with at least a specific number of people and actually take the steps to make that happen because if you don't, they won't. Now, once you meet these people, you need to stay in connection with them. So it's not enough to just go into these conventions, meet a couple of people, and walk out, and that's the end of it. If that's the end of it, what was the point? You want to make sure you develop a connection with them. Now, everybody that you meet may not be everybody that you stay in contact with. You may find that there are certain people you want to stay in contact with and certain people you just want to leave as a convention meeting. And sometimes in the follow up, you're actually going to meet people that you didn't meet at the convention, but were there and you met in the follow up that are going to be really good connections too. So once you walk away from this convention, you're going to need to stay in contact with them, which means as you're at the convention, you have to take steps to make that happen. So one of the best things I can tell you to do is to bring business cards. These are not necessarily businessy business cards. This is a business card with your contact information. You can have a photo of yourself on it. I recommend you do. That's a great way for people to remember who you are. You want to make sure it has your like your website and your however you want them to contact you. Typically email, social media. If you want to go beyond that, you can. You can put your texting number there, you can put something else, whatever, that's fine. But you want to make sure that you have some way of being able to hand information to people so that they remember it. Now, there are lots of ways that you can get around it if you don't want a business card, but you have to remember it might be hard for people to have those things on record. So I know that there's a lot of things that you can like attach to your phone and people can scan it and they just get it digitally, but then there's a risk of it getting lost. So you're going to want to encourage people to do one of two things. If you're doing things digitally, encourage them to screenshot it. And if you are doing it in a physical business card sense, you are going to encourage them to take a photo of it, which brings me to the second point. When you are handed business cards or digital things, you want to make sure that you're taking a photo of it because you know that the second you get that business card, you're going to tuck it in your pocket, your wallet, your bag, your whatever, which we're actually going to talk about in a minute, and it might get lost or damaged. You're not going to remember things. So, what I recommend you do is I recommend that you immediately take a photo of a business card on your phone. Now, you can actually edit these photos if you want. If you want to take notes with it, you can go into the edit tab and type in what the person looks like or something that you remembered about them. If they talked about their kids or their dog or their job, and it's something you want to remember so that when you connect with them later on, you can be like, I'm a smart person who remembers you have a 3-year-old puppy dog or a 5-year-old child or whatever it is. You can take those notes. I always recommend when you meet somebody new, if you know it's going to be somebody you want to stay in contact with, write things down. Doesn't matter what they are. Their coffee order that you see in their hand, the color of their eyes or their hair or what they're wearing, if they're dressy or if they're more casual, just write down notes. It helps you to remember these people later on. Now, of course, if you are taking photos with your phone, what you could do is immediately take that photo of the business card, but then say, hey, we need to get a selfie to document this for social media. Flip that camera right around and take a photo of you and that person immediately after the business card. So now you've got their business information and an immediate photo of them so you remember what they look like so that you can identify them later. maybe next year at a convention or at a different convention, or you remember what they look like before they join you for a live stream conversation that you're having inside of your talk show. There's lots of things that you can be doing to document these things so that you can stay in connection with them. Now, again, we're going to be breaking all this down in an upcoming video because this is a mini series with lots of things that we're doing. So hit the subscribe and notification bell. You don't want to miss out on this one. And then you want to jump back into what you're doing at the conventions because it is not just about the conventions. Conventions are great, events are fabulous, and the conversations you have in the side halls are going to be really good. So, yes, you will sit in rooms, you will listen to conversations, you will have workshops, all those things. But the real magic happens at the side events and the after hours events. So, I highly recommend that you stand around in the hallway in between events and make conversation with people and meet new people, go to new areas inside of these hallways. There's going to be so many conversations happening, and all of them are going to make those actual connections for you and help you elevate what you're doing. After hours events are incredibly good too. Usually, these are most of them have these after hours events inside of the facility you're staying at. If you're at a hotel, everybody's staying at the hotel, the convention's at the hotel, and they have some kind of after hours thing. Or you can have one of these side parties that people create. They'll just say, hey, we've got a room, or we're going to go meet in the lounge or whatever, and you can meet up with those people there. Sometimes they go out. They'll go out to dinner. They'll form different groups. Find a group, attach yourself to it, and head out. And if you can't find one, create a group. Invite people to go to dinner with you. Invite people to go out for drinks with you. Invite people to go do things. And you can be the one who inspires this and creates the conversations outside. And this is incredibly important because this is, again, where the magic happens. We're not sitting and having to listen to somebody speak. We have the ability to engage with people on a real relational level, which also brings me to my next point. Arrive early and stay late. Do not come the day of the event. All of the magic happens before and after. Before, you're going to have mixers, you're going to have the availability to meet people, you're going to start bumping into people in the lobbies of the hotels you're staying in, you're going to start to see people wearing lanyards or name tags, you're going to identify people and be able to have those conversations. Showing up at breakfast at the hotel is going to facilitate conversations, but then everybody makes friends during the convention. The day it ends, some people are going to leave. They're going to pack their stuff up and head on home. They're going to miss out on all the fun because now that you've got friends and connections, all the fun things happen the next day as everybody's preparing to leave, but it's not left yet, and all the things. So I definitely recommend showing up early and staying late. It is 10 out of 10 recommend coming early and staying late when it comes to these conventions, especially if it's more than one day event and it's something you're staying on location for. If it is like a one day, like we're just traveling down the street from where we live. Obviously, that's going to be a different story, but we're talking like we're traveling for this one. Now, the next step I want you to be taking into consideration is how you're packing. You want to make sure you're packing very wisely as you were getting ready for these conventions. So you want to make sure you're bringing outfits that work well for you, things that are going to work for the venue that you're in, for taking content creation into consideration. You want to make sure that you have extra things, but you're not overpacking. Like you understand the basic of packing. But you also want to make sure you pack specific things for the events. My biggest thing that I can recommend to you is a backpack or a bag. Don't just show up to conventions with nothing because everybody hands you stuff. You get handed swag. There are swag bags. If there are vendors, they're going to be handing you things. If there are sponsors for the events, they're going to be handing you a lot of paperwork and a lot of like paper goods and products and samples and stuff. You're also potentially going to be buying stuff from vendors, which y'all, it's going to start to be very cumbersome to carry all of that. So bring a backpack, bring a bag. It depends on what type of convention you're at. If you're going to something like a book signing, bring a cart. I am not kidding. One of those little canvas wagons, bring it. You're going to need it. And make sure that you're aware of what you're probably going to be carrying around. At absolute least, they're going to hand you stuff, paper product stuff to be carrying around. And that's just a lot of extra cumbersome stuff. So have a backpack, have a bag. If you really don't want to carry something like that, have one of those little collapsible grocery bag type things, like the little cute, super thin ones that you're supposed to like pop into your car and just pull out when you need it. Take that. You can shove it in your pocket. You can shove it in your purse. It is not going to take up a ton of space, but then if you need it, you have it. Another thing you definitely want to be bringing is Band-Aids. If you don't have them, you're going to need them. I promise you. I've been to too many conventions. I know there will be people who need them. If it's not you, it's going to be somebody else. Somebody's going to cut their foot. Somebody's going to cut their leg. Somebody is going to get blisters. Somebody is going to, go to open a door and get sliced open on their finger. Somebody's going to need a Band-Aid. I promise you, somebody's going to need a band aid. Take a band aid. If you are going to an event that's maybe a couple of days or you're traveling, bring a sewing kit too. That's also going to be very helpful for you. And then, of course, you want backup attire, backup shoes, because if you're walking around a convention and your shoe breaks or something happens or you spill something on yourself, you want easy access to those things. So if you are staying in the hotel the convention is at, you've got it in your room, you're fine. You can pop back in and you can get that. If you are driving to a venue, have them in your car. You don't need to carry them in with you, but have them in your car where you can access them. Now, if you have something like very small, you can kind of shove it in a bag or a purse. That's fine. I have been known to bring an extra pair of flip-flops just in case something happens to my shoes or they're uncomfortable or whatever, or I have to go outside for something and it's raining, heaven forbid, and I have to walk through puddles and I don't want to take my good shoes through puddles. I'll keep a pair of flip-flops inside of my bag because they're tiny and nobody knows and it's not in the way. I'll just keep it in the bottom of my bag. I can pull it out when I need it, but you want to have those backup things accessible to you in whatever level that happens to be. And we're going to talk more about this. So hit the subscribe and notification bell because we've got more videos where we're breaking down all this stuff for you. Now, you also want to make sure that you're knowing your schedule. You have to understand what's going to be happening inside of this convention or event. You need to prioritize. You're not going to have time for everything. You are not going to have time for every side convention event that they offer. A lot of them offer many, many opportunities for you to take different classes and workshops and conversations, and you're not going to get to all of them. Prioritize. Have your first must see level. Give 3 or 4 of those there. And do not miss those. Then have your next level, the things you really want to go to, if at all possible. If something shows up, it's okay, but the ones that you really do want to go to. Then have a level where it is, I would like to go to this, but if some other opportunity comes up, it's okay. And then from there, you really don't need anything else. But at that point, you then have some free time that you can be going and doing things. Now, like I have here, you want to make sure you're leaving time to be social and to hang out. Don't schedule back to back to back to back to back workshops. You don't want to bounce from one class to the next, to the next, to the next, and not have time for hanging out in the hallway and being social and having conversations. You got to leave time for things like lunch and snack time or, getting coffee or whatever it happens to be. You want to make sure you're leaving in travel time. If you have to go from one room to the next, you don't want back-to-back things if it's going to be every single time. So you want to make sure you're leaving time to be social and to hang out and to recharge, which also means if you're an introvert, and I am, you wouldn't know by the way I talk, but I'm an introvert, you got to make sure you're scheduling time to regroup and getting away from people. So schedule a little bit of time to bounce back to your room for half an hour to take a break, or to go sit in the hallway or the lobby, or to step away from the convention more or less entirely so that you can, sit on the floor against the wall and just check your social media or text your friend or whatever, something so that you have a moment to yourself so that you can recharge that battery. Because when you're in a very social setting, it can be very, very draining as an introvert, and you do not want to risk not having a good conversation because you were overwhelmed or because you were overtired or because you were just overdone with all the people. You also want to make sure that you are making and checking off a list of the people you want to connect with, the things that you want to do, and something new that you want to experience. So as you are walking into any convention, I want you to come up with one thing that you want to experience. Doesn't matter what it is. It could be a really great conversation. It could be a collaboration or a connection. It could be the opportunity to try to create content with a creator you haven't created content with yet. Whatever it is, get creative about it, but have one big goal that you want to do something new and something maybe potentially a little bit scary for you on your list, and make sure you're getting that done as you are going. You also want to make sure you have clear expectations of what you want to get out of this event and what you want to walk away with having achieved or learned, and do not leave until it is done. So have very clear expectations on what you're taking away from this, because if you walk into it and you're not sure, you're not going to be able to find it. And then you're going to struggle to figure out what it was after you left. So know what you want. Maybe it is a collaboration. Maybe it's a connection. Maybe it's an introduction to somebody you've been trying to get in front of for a long time. Maybe it is one really cool business lesson that you learned that's going to change the way that you do your business. Maybe it was learning someone else's process for doing something in business that you can now try. It doesn't matter what it is, but I want you to very clearly express what that is to yourself before you go. I recommend writing it down. Put it on your list on your phone. Just write down what that expectation is. What's the thing you want to walk away from this event? Or what is the thing that you want to walk away with from this event? and don't leave until you've done it. Make sure that happens. And the earlier you can make sure that is achieved, the less stress you're going to have. And also make sure that you are not afraid to ask those questions. So once you get there, you are asking questions, you're having conversations, you are talking to people. Don't be afraid to ask silly questions. There are no silly questions here. Someone else is going to be thinking it as well, and you cannot get those answers unless you ask those questions. So you've got to make sure that you are doing your best to make the most out of this. You are paying a lot of money to go to these conventions. I know it is expensive between travel and lodging and actually attending the events and any bonus things that you're doing. I know this is expensive. So you need to be putting your best effort to get your money's worth out of it. You can go with very low expectations and very low ability to put into what you are going to be getting out of this, and it's going to be okay. But we don't want okay, we want exceptional for you. So we want to make sure we have clear expectations. We are going in with a thought process of how we're going to be doing things. We're going to make sure that we know what we're getting out of it and we get that out of it. And we want to make sure we're documenting the entire process along the way so that we can then use it to market ourselves and our businesses later on. Like I said, there are going to be lots of breakout sessions from this conversation in our next couple of videos. So make sure you hit that subscribe and notification bell. We are dropping videos daily to help you level up your business online so you can make more money from your social media while spending less time creating the content for your social media and making sure you're making the most out of your online business and your in-person side of your business as well. Questions, comments, drop them down below. Follow along for the upcoming videos. We have weekly live streams here on the channel and daily videos on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, live streaming, and the tools and resources you need to navigate your business so that you're making more money and spending less time on it. I'll see you in the next episode.